Welcome to the Overland Sea podcast. Today we are talking about the Arsenal game. Andrew, you went to the game. I was on holiday. Two very different points of view with receiving the information and hearing the results and stuff come in. Tell me how you were thinking about going into the game and as you got to the bridge.
I think going into the game, it was not really nervous, but I wasn't expecting a lot. I thought we might get away with a draw, and if you offered me 2-2 draw before the game started, I probably would have. Well, I would have taken it. I'm not sure I'd have bit someone's hand off for it, but I'd have been pretty enthusiastic about taking it. But feel slightly disappointed that we didn't pick up a win after being 2-0 up that late on in the game. And did think we were the better team outside of they had a 15-minute spell. And I think we rode out that 15-minute spell, got it back to we were just sort of retaining the ball fairly well, no real issues, and then gave them a goal. And then they stuck another one when it was a relatively even game for the sort of the rest of it. So slightly disheartened by the result, but uplifted by the performance.
Yeah, I get that. I've watched the game. And I mean, for somebody who obviously wasn't watching it live and seeing the results come in, I couldn't believe it when we went 1-0 up. I didn't get ahead of myself because obviously you just kind of go, you don't really know what's going on in the game. You're just getting the odd result. And then obviously it was 2-0 quite early on in the second half. And all the little reports I saw was like Chelsea were in the game and controlling the game and playing really, really well. But I still didn't kind of like get too overexcited by it because I was like, I know we've got mistakes in us. And then it went 2-1. And I was like, oh, come on, 15 minutes. And the closer it got to the 90th minute, the more I kind of felt like, we could get something. But I originally predicted a 2-2 draw. So I was like, I couldn't be upset with a draw. And obviously not seeing the full game and understanding what happened, you just kind of go, I knew a draw was a big result for us. Watching the game now, it is disheartening. I think you summed it up really well because you're just going like the mistakes that led to the goals. You're just like, oh fuck. But overall, I thought it was a really good performance, and to go up against a team like that when we were struggling earlier on in this season, I think it showed a big step. Who was your standout player?
Standout player. This is the thing where I thought everyone was good. Standout is difficult.
Is there a
I don't
couple?
think the match is very easy. But I don't know. I don't think anyone was, from memory, I don't think anyone was absolutely wow spectacular. But I thought everyone had a pretty good game, other than the donkey, who we'll come on to. But I think I'm gonna give it to Madrid. Actually, he got his goal, whether he meant it or not.
That was going to be my next question. That was going to be. I've heard some people go, yeah, he's meant it. Chris Sutton's come out and gone, why is he celebrating? It's clearly a cross that's gone wrong.
He claims to have meant it, but I think he's just trying to put it in that area, and if he gets a nick, it goes in. Or I don't, I don't think he's 100% like I'm definitely chipping this in now. I think he's put it into that dangerous area and gone. Anything can happen.
Yeah, go on, Sterling. Get your head on the back corner of that.
Well, that is my only argument for like maybe he has actually tried to chip the keeper there, because what are the chances of Sterling winning a back post header in that situation? Very slim. So
I'm pretty sure he was up against Saliba as well. No,
yeah,
Saliba or Gabriel at that point. I can't remember which one it was. Might be Gabriel.
And Mudryk also won us the penalty with his header.
Yeah.
So I think he had quite a good impact on the game for us. So I'm going to go Mudryk, but I thought a lot of players had a very good game. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I liked. We didn't really speak about the starting 11, which will lead me nicely into this, because I was a little bit surprised, but I thought the midfield and the front three really worked well together in terms of the pressing game. It was really nice to see. I think Cole Palmer was brilliant. He's definitely cementing himself as a key member of the squad. What were your thoughts on the starting 11 that Poch picked?
I think it's. I mean, it's roughly what I'd have gone with, except for obviously playing a striker. I would have had Jackson playing. Yeah, so I was surprised that we didn't play striker. I think we didn't have enough height up top, but then it kind of worked as well. So it's hopefully it means that Poch knows what he's doing and I'm chatting shit. But I think I was surprised that we wouldn't have a striker against Arsenal if one was fit.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, but I think as soon as I saw that we weren't playing the striker, when we were texting before the game, you know, we both kind of went, they must be going for a press right now, which I thought was the right call. And I'm pretty sure you suggested that in the pre-game one, if I remember correctly. I mean, I'm still not sure about our strikers, if I'm brutally honest. I wasn't entirely sure about the lineup not having a striker just from that, but I thought Sterling played really well in that game. So I definitely got to give him credit there. It was nice to see Gusto come back. Yeah, I think we still need to work on the striker area. I think we're going to end up having to buy a striker in January if possible.
I think we might end up playing Nkunku there now.
Sorry, say again.
I think we might start playing Nkunku there when he's fit now because of how well Cole Palmer's done. I kind of want to see him in the 10.
Yeah, I mean,
so if we end up playing that system,
I mean, I'm intrigued about Nkunku coming back. He should be back in December. The reports are quite positive about him coming back a little bit earlier than what they first suspected. And I think, depending on how he plays and where he plays, will then determine what we do in the transfer window in January. But I thought the team worked really well in that formation and the way we played. Compared to
the first half, Arsenal did nothing.
No,
we didn't feel like they were in the game in the first half.
We didn't allow them to. We knew it could be quite an open game. They weren't going to sit back, and we took the game to them. You know, we had a game plan. It was a clear game plan, which is nice to see. And you know, in other games, we both said we don't really feel like that's happened. So yeah, moving on to something that you've already commented on, I believe. I know what you're going to say, but your worst player, if that's the best way to say it, Sanchez.
Pillock. I'm at the point now where I kind of Poch came out afterwards and sort of defended it. It was like he's playing the way that we want him to play. So there is an element of blame for Poch of forcing this goalkeeper to play in this way that doesn't seem to be capable of doing it in the way that we need him to. I was also very upset with how he just seemed to amble back to the goal after he made the mistake. He just kind of looked confused rather than like rushing back to his goal. And I'm not saying that he would have saved it if he rushed back, but when you fuck up, you want to see them make the effort to try and stop there being that level of a consequence. I didn't see that effort either. So very disappointed with that, really. He's a decent enough shot stopper. I mean, is it like I also think he probably should have got something to the second one. It was very close to him.
Well, neither goalkeeper had good games, really. Not excusing Sanchez. But
Raya at least made up for his when he made the mistake.
Yeah.
Of giving the ball away. He at least like rushed over and made up for it, stopped anything bad happening. I get his positioning for the goal wasn't great, but I don't.
No,
Fine.
I get what you're saying, and I agree in the sense that it's a bit like when a player outfield loses the ball quite cheaply, and then they just sort of stand there and kind of go, oh,
Yeah.
and by that point, the then defending team, now attacking team, is running off the ball, and you've got your player that's just lost the ball, sort of just not doing anything. You want to see them track back because they've lost it
Mm.
cheap. So I get it. It's the same principle. Um, I think the goalkeeping situation is still not resolved, and that's worrying. Moving forward. Yeah.
Thing is, we've bought 3 new goalkeepers since they came in, right? 3.
Well, yeah, one of them's on loan though. The American one's Solina is on loan,
Yeah.
and then we've got
But surely, if you're fine, so you buy a 19-year-old because they're very good and they're 19 and you've got a plan for them and loaning them out, fine. But we've then bought 2 other goalkeepers that aren't particularly good when we've been spending hundreds of millions of pounds on. Well, I don't know anything about Petrovic. I haven't seen the guy play. And admittedly, Sanchez was probably brought in to be a number 2 to a better ball playing goalkeeper.
yep.
That we might play in the bigger games, we would have less of the ball, but we'd want someone to claim across or someone with slightly different attributes to Kepa, who was at the time first choice before he left, supposedly. But I just think we've now got a situation where we've got to get rid of a goalkeeper to get a new one in.
Yeah.
And we've still got to offload the one that we've loaned out this year.
Who doesn't want to come back to the
Who
club?
doesn't want to come back? And we're just causing ourselves these offloading problems where we're now in a position where we've got 8 players out. We don't really have enough fit players to have sort of 2 in each position. Or some positions we don't even have anyone at some weeks. But we're in a position where we've got a squad of 25 players. So we kind of actually, you look at it and go, we probably really need to get rid of a few. We're overstocked in centre back. We're overstocked in probably, in theory, wingers, but none of them are ever fit.
Well,
And you
again,
can,
it's mirror for me. It's a mirror of what happened this time last season. I think we had more players coming back and more players getting injured last season, but we still had players getting injured and coming back not quite fully fit and having to play. And then we went out and bought. So then we had a oversized squad.
yeah. So it's not. My point is, I don't think it's an easy situation to fix because we've just got so many players. We don't really have an identity anymore of these are the types of players that we buy this because we play this style of football. So different managers want different players. We end up getting losing players that we'd rather keep, and I think most managers would rather have because that manager, for whatever reason, didn't fancy that player. And you kind of look at it and go, it's all just a bit of a mess. And we kind of need to trim down the squad to the players that we want to keep and fit our style of play and are fit most of the time rather than just a couple of games a season. And fine, you might risk a few players that you know are pretty injury prone, but they're good enough that you're like, well, I'd rather have that player in the team for between 10 and 15 games a season than have someone that is slightly worse that we can't have, that we could have the 30 games a season. But you can't have more than a couple of those because you see what happens to it, where we've got a Fofana that has had significant injury problems for 3 seasons in a row. Reece James has had significant injury problems. Chilwell, significant injury problems. We bought Nkunku, who I didn't really think had significant injury problems, but got injured, I think, before or after we bought him.
No, he got
He was
injured.
out injured when we bought him.
Yeah, he was injured when we bought him. He came back, played up until like what? Borussia Dortmund was the last preseason game I think we played. We might have had one more after that. Got injured in that, and then he was out for a
Which, to be
couple.
fair, was an impact injury, so that's slightly different. But still, question marks. We've signed Lavia, who just seems to be close to coming back constantly, but never actually comes back. Broja keeps getting injured, and you're just kind of looking at it going, something is wrong. And I don't know whether we just happen to have accumulated a lot of players that are injury prone, or we are making players injury prone because our medical team aren't good enough. But
Well,
something needs to change because we, at the minute, we're in this position of having loads of players, so we can't really get anyone in because then our squad's far too big. But half them aren't actually available half the time. So really, we're playing with a very small squad. We just have a huge one on payroll.
yeah, there are definitely certain players where we have bought who have had significant injuries before they've come to the club. Fafana being one, and Cuckoo being one. Reece James didn't have any injury problems until, well, the big one that he had, and then he's just been injured ever since, on and off. Chilwell, I don't think had any big injury problems before he came to club. He then had a big injury, and he now seems to struggle here and there. Broja, again, as far as we're aware, coming through the youth academy, didn't have any injury problems until he had that big injury, and now he's injured again. Madueke has had injury problems. I don't know how much. Well, actually, no, he had injury problems before we bought him. So I think it's a bit of everything, but I think a fair few of them have just been where they've had a horrific injury, unfortunately, and ever since then they've not been quite right. And you are right. At some point, maybe we're going to have to make, not we, but the club will have to make a decision on what they want to do about that, because they've already offloaded a bunch of players that were injury prone in Pulisic and Loftus-Cheek. I didn't want to get rid of Loftus-Cheek. Ironically, I saw Gio the other day, and he was like, "Thank you so much for Ruben Loftus-Cheek." I was like, "You're welcome. I'm glad he went to Milan." It is a problem, and I think it's a problem that needs fixing sooner rather than later. Even if it is that they end up getting rid of a player that could then actually end up leaving and being fit for 3 seasons or however many more and playing really, really well. But you are right, we can't have that on the books all the time. But I think we'll probably end up having another conversation about that nearer the January transfer window, because we have so many players still out injured, and because we've got so many players out on loan who don't look like they're going to get into the first team moving forward. So with that, any more thoughts on the Arsenal game? Well, we haven't really spoken much about it. I think it speaks for itself. Anyone who watched it, in terms of the performance, was a very good performance, but it's just one of those demoralizing games, because we probably could have scored more and should have done, and the mistakes let us down again.
Yeah, I think that's the story of the last few years for us. Of either we've been the better team or didn't deserve to lose, or we deserve to win the game. But when push comes to shove, we end up making a couple of silly mistakes that cost us a game, or we don't take the chances that we should have taken. And I think, yeah, if we talk any more about the Arsenal game, we'll just keep regurgitating the same stuff that we talk about.
Well, hopefully they can take something from that game, and not get too demoralized, because it was a very good performance, a very good team performance. And I really like the way that they all pressed as one. They mixed things up a little bit, and hopefully that can be taken into the next game against Brentford. Like, share, subscribe, follow. As Andrew always likes to remind me, notification button. And yeah, stay tuned for more.